In this video, I'm going to show you how to connect one slicer to multiple pivot tables even when they are separate sources. Using one slicer for multiple pivot tables works easily when it's the same data source, but when the data set isn't the same, that's when it can become a bit more challenging to set up. So let's go over how to address this issue in Excel. In my example here, I've got two tabs, one for sales data and one for expenses. And I want to link these data sets together. And to do so, I'm going to create a couple of extra tables, one for the store ID and one for the month. So I'm going to create a new worksheet here, and this is going to be for my store IDs. So I'm going to copy the stores from any one of my sheets here. I'm going to copy the store ID, paste it over, and now I'm going to remove duplicates. By going to the data tab, click on remove duplicates, and so now I only have a list of unique store IDs here, 1 through 50. Next, I'm going to create a table for all the months. And so here, I'm going to just grab all these data sets here. So I've got January through to December, copy this, paste it into here. Now that I've got my tables all set up, I'm going to add them to my data model. So under the Power Pivot tab, if you don't see this, you may need to enable this under your Excel add-ins, but within this section, you'll see an option to add to a data model. If I click on this, Excel is going to automatically detect my range, and I'm going to specify my source. And if I have headers, which in this case I do, I'm going to click on OK. And now that's going to get added to my to Power Pivot, to my data model. So that's in there. I'm going to rename this from table 1 to just say months, and close this out. And go into stores and do the same thing. Under Power Pivot, add to data model, check off my table as headers, click OK, and rename this one to stores. And repeat this process for the other ones as well. Add to data model, click OK. And this is just a one-time process we're going to need to set up just to make sure all of our data is loaded in here. So this is going to be expenses. And then the last one to pull in is going to be sales. Again, anywhere, as long as you're selected on your data set, will be fine. The key thing is for Excel to automatically detect that range correctly. And so this is going to be sales data. So now with that set up, the next thing that I need to do is create the relationships between these different tables, because right now they're not connected. If I go to the Design tab in Power Pivot, there's an option to create relationships. If I click on this, I can specify which table should be connected to which one and how. So those new tables that I created, months and stores, is what I'm going to do to create those relationships. I'm going to select months and then link that to the expenses and also the sales, but I can only do one at a time. So months connected to months, click OK. So very straightforward relationships, and repeat that process so that we again go back to months, link it this time to sales, click OK. And so now I've got those relationships set up. So I've got one for sales, one for expenses, many to one, because there's only going to be one value from my month table, but there's going to be many repeating ones on the expenses and sales. Now I'm going to create another one, this time for my store IDs. So I'm going to select the stores table that I set up and link this to first my expenses. Again, store ID to store ID, click OK. Create another one, and this one for stores and sales. And it automatically is going to detect store ID, goes to store ID. So I'm going to click OK. And this looks to be correct, many to one for all these. So the ones that just have a single unique value are going to be on the one side, whereas the ones that will have multiple or many values, many of the same repeating values, they're going to be on the many side of that rule. So I'm going to click close, and you can also check what your relationships look like by going into the diagram view. If I click in here, you'll see how they're linked in together. So if we want to organize this a little bit cleanly, we can see that we've got sales and expenses linked to our store ID. You can see the one on each side. So that is how we want it to be set up. So now that that's looking correct, I can go ahead and create a pivot table. And when you create a pivot table, with these relationships, you want to do it within the Power Pivot window. You don't want to close out of here and create a pivot table. You want to click the pivot table button right within here, right within Power Pivot. So I'm going to click on that and select the default to use a new worksheet. Click OK. And so now I've got my pivot table set up as you normally might expect it to look when you're setting up a pivot table. So I'm going to pull in my sales data by clicking on total sales from the sales table. On the expenses, I'm going to select my total expenses. And then for the months and the stores, even though these values are within here, I've got month and store IDs, I actually want to pull them from the individual months and stores tables, just because that's where they're linked to these expenses and sales tables. So it's important to make sure that I'm pulling it from the correct place. For example, if I select month from here and I drag it onto here, it's going to tell me that relationships may need to be created. And you can see when you've got these repeating values, that means that something's not set up properly, because obviously this is not correct. So I'm going to remove this from here, and instead I'm going to go back to my months table and now pull in the month field into here. And now when I do so, now you can see I've got different values now. Now I no longer have this issue of repeating values. And I'm also going to pull in, I don't need this other month value here. So I've got my months in here. And for the stores, I'm going to select the store ID. So I'm going to pull that in here. And let's say I'll have stores going across potentially, or however you want to set it up. But now we've got the months and we've got the stores. So it actually automatically detected the month. So I can try this field instead. There we go. So now we've got the month name. So either way, we've still got the data in there. And so now it's organized as we would expect as a normal pivot table. Now we can add the slicers into here. So if I select any cell on my pivot table, I'm going to go to the pivot table analyze option and then select the button to insert a slicer. And now you'll notice now I can select how I want to slice this data. And again, it's important to make sure that I'm selecting the right field from the right table. So I've got the month field here, where it automatically converted this into a month name, and I've got the store ID. So I'm going to click OK. And now because my relationships are set up correctly, any one of these selections is going to affect this entire pivot table, even though the data is coming from multiple places. So where I've got sales and expenses, it's going to pull in and update all that. So let's say I just want to look at stores 001 for the month of January. So I've got that. I'm going to remove my grand totals here. So right click, remove grand total, just so I can have my sales and expenses. So let's say I want to see all the sales and expenses by store for January. I'm going to unfilter this. And so we've got our stores going across. And so I can look at multiple months if I wanted to. I can select my filters and I can change this around. If I want to flip it, let's say put the store over here, month over here, it works just the same as a normal pivot table. And as you can see, my values are not repeating. I've got my January sales, I've got my January expenses. I may just want to format this so it looks a bit easier to read. But as you can see, they're not repeating the values. They're responding to my filters. So if I just look at March, I can have a breakdown by stores. If I want to look at certain stores, I can do that as well. So by setting up the relationships and using Power Pivot, you can create more powerful pivot tables that are linked in together and that have the relationships set up where you can set them up and link multiple data sources from different tables, and still being able to have one slicer to connect and update all those values. The key thing is making sure you've got those relationships set up correctly and you're pulling in the correct field, because a telltale sign that you've done something wrong or you've pulled in the wrong field is when you see those repeating values. But the key thing there is just to make sure that your relationships are set up correctly and that you're pulling in from the correct table. In this case, anything that you want to filter by, both tables by, you want to consider setting up as their own individual tables, just so it's a lot easier to set up those relationships and then set up the filters, because this is where you want to pull those values from, not from the individual ones that have the month and store, instead of where those connections are set up. So that's how you can set this up, where you've got one slicer linking to multiple data sources. It can be a little bit tedious to set up, but once you've got it, then you should be good to go. So I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.